Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're having a fabulous week, better than mine, and hope that your seahorse and reef tanks are swimmingly wonderful. I need to get some new lines, I know. But happy Wine Wednesday. Glad you're here to join us. I'm sipping on Chardonnay. Let me know what you're sipping on in the comments. And we are have it tonight is open chat. So if you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask in the comment section. If you're on Instagram, don't forget it's going to look funny, but you can listen. And if you want to see us and join in and ask questions, just jump on over to YouTube, search Seahorse Whisperer, and the very first thing you see will be the live stream. We take all comments from Facebook and YouTube, and we're just glad to have you guys back with us. So I did title this today Diatoms and Dinos because I'll tell you why in a minute, but I just wanted to say again, it's still open chat, so we'll cover any questions you want to talk about. We can talk about anything you'd like, and I know we are going to have a deep discussion about dissolved organics after we talk diatoms. The other disappointment was I contacted Jason Mack, whom Tyann from Tank Talk with Tyann said was an excellent person to talk with about diatoms. And unfortunately, he is on the other side of the world. So it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for him when it's 8 o'clock for me and 5 o'clock for Holly. So we couldn't get him to actually come, but he's been helping me via messenger. And we've used, last week we talked about Laura's tank. If you want to see the pictures or get the details behind the tank, watch last week. And so I gave him all those details and he gave me some suggestions. So it's not going to be what I'd hoped where we have the expert here to share, but we will at least get a step further in solving the problem because we can share what he told me. I also thought Cruz, hey, Sam, oh my gosh,
Hey,
Sam's
Sam.
here.
Huh.
Melinda's here. Woo! So again, I'm gonna share what Jason shared with me about diatoms. I had hoped that Cruz Arias was gonna come because he was my mentor, inspiration, everything. He helped me get my reef tank back in order, and he's the one that's helped me with all my nuisance algae problems. So I sent him a link. He said he could come, but he might have he's got health stuff. So if he can't come, it'll be a shame, but I'll hit him up on the side too and try to get some more information about dinos. Before we even start, I wanted to tell you the information that I'm going to share about diatoms comes from the gentleman that runs this group. And I would advise Laura and anyone else who is having troubles with diatoms to join this group. It's called Max Reef. They do focus more on dinoflagellates, but he's the one that Tyann said was pro, and he really gave me some good ideas about diatoms. And they have a files section that literally gives you all sorts here. Diatoms, right? And scope images and all this other great stuff. They've got, you can search by topic, and questions was where I was going. I learned a lot just by going into the question section because look, that picture, I'm going to pull it up even. Look, that looks just like her picture, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So I'm going to advise Laura to get over that group because they are excellent and they share like scopes and in fact, that is the first thing that he said when I reached out to Jason. He said that it looks to him because at first he said, "Are you sure it's not dinos?" Right? Because you can confuse dinos and diatoms, right? And so he said, "Let me get it up here. Had it up. Sorry." His first question to me was, "Are you sure it's diatoms?" And I was like, "Well, And I sent him the pictures, and he said it does look like it, but it's really hard to ID these things with the naked eye. So the only sure way is to do a sample under a microscope. So if anyone has specific diatom questions, the first thing to do is get us a microscope image. I know that's not easy for someone who doesn't know how, but go to that group, and I'm in that group because I need help too, right? Hi, Shyla. Hi, Kevin. And Tyann did have Dr. Tim's on last night and learned all about. I wish Dr. Tim could join us later for the dissolved organics conversation that Ray's going to share with us because he's got some info from Randy Holmes Farley. Maybe I'll have to reach out to Dr. Tim. I hope Seahorse will join too, but I'm rambling. Anyways, so I'm just going to read off what Jason said. and then we will go from there since he couldn't actually be here. So he said, it looks like diatoms need a scope. He said the only reason a 3-year-old tank would get diatoms when there are no changes is if silicates are being added. Now,
Sand.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, well, silicates can be in sand, but
Yeah.
it's the same sand. So I'm still confused. So I'm going to ask him about that. But he said it all boils down to silicates. And Kevin, yeah, I know. I actually should have reached out to him. I didn't know we were going to talk dissolved organics later, or I would have, because Ray's going to tell us it's about bacteria. But anyways, let me get through the diatoms. So silicates are the main problem, is what he says. The first place to start is always with and he said diatoms can also go into the water column at night, because I had mentioned that she could see them at night, because I know sometimes people think that doesn't matter. Phytoplankton is the start of the food chain in the sea. Copepods, amphipods next. So we advise to dose to help support the tank's biome, because I saw in the group a lot of people basically think that the reason that in our tanks that we have like so sterile or whatnot, that we might get a problem like this is because we don't have the natural, I can't even think of the word. Kevin, help me out. You probably know the word. The natural, I guess biome is the word, but I was thinking of the more hobbyist based term. But so, you need the stepping stones of the life in the water, right? So a lot of people are having success when they use phytoplankton, copepods, and etc. to create the true necessary biome. We'll leave it there. He also said we dose sodium silicates to induce a diatom bloom in tanks. So again, he's just falling back on the fact that silicates, when you see diatoms, silicates, microfauna. Thank you, Kevin. I knew you'd come through for me. Yeah, and flora, seahorse corners, all good words that I couldn't think of. So
The
you guys should meet
flora
again.
and fauna of the tank.
Exactly. Thank you, Ollie. So that's one thing that we can discuss further. And I mean, I trust Jason and the group. So that's one thing I would personally try looking into. And as far as the actual dosing, again, go to the group. I don't want to give out, instructions that I haven't used myself and don't have experience with. So go to that group. Also, I asked him about peroxide. Oh, I'm sorry. He said, and this is interesting how things jump from clownfish world to seahorse world to reef tank world. Everything's kind of the same. There's Sam with microorganisms. You all got my back. But they cycle tanks with new dry rock also. Diatoms are the first sign of life in the tank, and we knew that, right? We know. And if somebody says they just set up a tank, then we're always going to be like, just let it go. Let it go through the cycle. There is an algae cycle. In Laura's case, it's a 3-year-old tank. So we need to dive into figuring out why her silicate level is higher. If she's, she said she didn't add anything, if it can just be because of the sand, I'll reach out to him with those questions. Hey, Salty, if you missed the very beginning, basically Jason Mack has told us that the only reason you'd see diatoms in a 3-year-old tank is silicates. So we need to figure out how silicates or the level of silicates is raising in her tank when she's not added anything or done anything. So that's where we're at. I also asked about peroxide, since peroxide is something I personally used in my attempt to kill dinoflagellates, which I know I said diatoms, different things, but I wondered, and I asked Jason, can peroxide be used for diatoms? And he said, peroxide kills indiscriminately, good things and bad. It can help with an algae problem and sometimes with Ostreopis, Ostreopis, dinos. So it helps with dinos, but he was not advising it for diatoms. And Sam actually asked in the comment section, is she using RODI? She is. And Jason actually said, because I'd mentioned that she had just added her DI to her RO in the past 6 months. And he said, has the DI been changed in that time? Because if you think about it, and I think this is where he was going, if you have RO water and then you say, nope, I want better, cleaner water, and you add the DI, then all of a sudden you have this super clean water, right? But then if you don't change that DI, then it starts to build backwards. Does that make sense? Did that, you guys, anybody? Everybody's staring at me with blank faces. I think that makes sense to me, that if you don't change the DI, then it could possibly be letting things in and the water's not as good. Also, just for Laura's sake, he said your magnesium's a little bit low. 1250 to 1300 would be better. And he also mentioned, we were talking about lighting last week, white lights can cause algae. In reefs, white lights are just for pleasure. I did know that one. And that's why all of a sudden on our pictures, we see blue, terrible pictures of seahorses and such, and you got to turn the whites up to get the pictures, but it's really just for us. They don't care. And it can add to, hang on, I'm gonna mute her because she's being loud. And it can add to problems. So white doesn't penetrate far in the sea. Corals grow more in the blue spectrum, but it's all just what pleases our individual eye. I prefer more blues, but maybe if she reduces her whites just a tad, if that's possible. So what we have for now, since Cruz wasn't able to come in, hey, Francis, anybody who wants to jump in, it really is just open chat still. I just wanted to show you guys that I actually did follow up on contacting Jason last week, and unfortunately he couldn't be here, but he gave us some suggestions for Laura and for anyone else, that turn the whites down on your lights if you're having a diatom problem. Turn the whites down. And how does anybody know how you figure out your silicate levels in a tank? Because I really don't know. I'm not sure.
Test kits for it.
For silicates?
I've never had to, but there probably is a test kit.
Well, I'm going to look that up. So unfortunately, I don't have the full answer. I titled this Diatoms and Dinos because I thought Cruz was going to be here and he could answer all of our questions. But unfortunately, he hasn't come. So we will keep researching. But so far, turn down the whites in your tank. Check for silicates if there's a way to check for it. And I'm going to ask him. Oh, Kevin said there is a test kit.
Yeah,
Kevin,
everyone says a test kit. What I'm thinking, though, is silicates. That's would be sand and salt and rock would be the sources of silicates, right? Is there anything else that could add silicates to a tank besides those?
And see, Salty, Melinda, Seahorse Corner, Kevin, Sam, all of you guys said there's a test kit for it.
Yeah.
So
but where does it come from, though? Just sand, salt, and rock in my mind.
And then okay, sorry. And then I thought it was for this. So all you guys that obviously know more than we do about diatoms, this is a community group conversation. Any of you guys know an answer to Holly's question? Because I don't. Sam said water, salt mix.
Salt mix.
So could you maybe possibly change salts? We're trying to help Laura get rid of diatoms. What'd you say, Holly?
I think that would be a legitimate question if nothing else has changed. Did you switch salt mixes recently?
And Sam said it can come from nutrients from food also. So I wonder if I'm sure that Laura's rinsing her food. I'm sure she is. But that's for anybody who doesn't. If you're having a problem, maybe start trying to rinse your food. Ray, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I don't think should worry too much about the salt mix. If the salt mix was a problem, everybody that uses that salt mix is going to have the same problem, and that word would get around.
And let's see, Seahorse Corner. See, you guys are helping us this time. You guys are the experts, and we're listening. But Seahorse Corner said water can have silicates in it. Rock has silicates, and Kevin said water is a usual source. Good RODI helps them to not have it. So for Laura, we're going to tell her, please try. Oh, Cheryl bumped out. We're going to tell Laura, turn down the white. Actually, remember, the other thing we always say is don't do too many things at once, because if you do, then you don't know what fixed it. So first, I would say, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, first I would say change the DI and give it a week or two to see if that changes, because if she changes the DI and it's the water is the problem, then she's resolved it, and then we know. And then if that doesn't work, try lowering the whites on her lighting. But see, the white lighting thing, I agree that that's a good good response. But the thing is, it's a 3-year-old tank, right? So why would the white lighting be affecting it now?
Well, and to me, she just started using the dye.
Well, she did 6 months ago.
She didn't have the problem when it was the RO. alone. She had the problem after she added the DI.
I know, but she had the problem 6 months after she added the DI. And depending on her water, because we don't know the
Yeah.
well, wait, listen, because we don't know her TDS, like for instance, in my case, I
Mhm.
have to use RODI or distilled water because my water is a TDS of like 430. It's like ridiculously terrible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So if what I'm seeing is if she has terrible water, let's say, and the tank was used to it or whatever, and she adds the DI, all of a sudden it's this, really clean water, cleaned up, and then the DI works less and less as it's used, right? Every time
Yeah.
she makes water. And then if she needs to replace it, now all of a sudden you went from, okay, the tank got used to being, I'm not
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
dirty,
yeah.
but higher TDS. Then it was 0 TDS. And now it's creeping back up, which kind of would lead to what Tyann was saying last week, some sort of mini cycle kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just my thoughts. I'm
Well,
not
mine,
growing
I don't know how they all are because I've only started using the RODI like in the last year or so, but it has a TDS meter on it, so it's telling me like right now it's 1, and I know Cheryl told me it's okay to be 3 or 4, you want to change it. I've been changing it at 1. So I was like over, and it's expensive, to keep changing this stuff out. But so I'm thinking, don't they all have a TDS meter? Or is it common to have a TDS meter with your DI?
I had to
No.
buy my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And guys, again, I apologize. We ran so late. Cheryl's having audio trouble. I can tell she wants to say something, but if she sounds
Mhm.
funny, sorry. Did you want to say something, Cheryl? Oh, now we can't hear you at all. Oh no.
Type it, Cheryl. We can't hear you.
Type it and I'll read it. I'll read it out loud, Cheryl. Sorry. But Salty Reef said recommending to change the DI resin and do an ICP test on the tank water and the freshly mixed salt water. Ooh, good to get the
And
comparison.
flush
That's
the membrane. Yeah. I have to remember to do that once a week. I flush my membrane.
Yep. And Kevin wants to know the source of her water. So again, we're trying in this case to help Laura specifically. So we've gotten some great ideas for her to try and come back to us. But
Mhm.
I still want to get you guys and any kind of pros in here to share because everybody has these problems and it's just different situations. So I wish that Laura could come and answer your questions
Mhm.
right off the bat, like about water quality. But unfortunately, she can't come on Wednesdays.
Mm.
So again, I advise the group, Jason's group, Max. I think it says Dinos, doesn't it? Yeah, it's Max Reef Dinoflagellate Support Group. Definitely go join that because they're really good and absolute. Oh, Jessica Stam's here. Wow. She said, agree with the RODI possibly being the culprit, need to replace parts on them often, sometimes pending the water source and ICP testing. And guys, I'm going to try to get somebody from ICP testing to come in here and talk because I'd like to know more about that. And I'm sorry I'm jumping. You guys, I got comments all over. It's great. I love it. But definitely, I'm just wondering how if it comes down to the DI because some of the manufacturers have only replace it every year or only replace it every 6 months, but it does
6
depend on your
months.
water quality. Yeah, but
Yeah, the 6
mine, I had to replace
months
mine
is
every.
about mine and my water quality before the RODI is actually pretty good. Like my
I was gonna.
TDS here is 25
I
naturally
hate you.
before it goes through the thing.
Well, I
So,
hate you.
yeah, but 6 months is about the time when I have to change it out, if not before.
See, mine I changed every
So,
3 months. I did not play around because I would use my little TDS meter, and after 3 months, it'd start creeping up. So
yeah, it has a
definitely,
meter. And mine, though, mine runs about 1 at 6 months.
and
But
I'll
I
be
was
honest.
changing it out at 1. I've been changing it out at 1. But, after Cheryl's advice, I'm thinking maybe I should go and wait for 2 or 3 because it is expensive to do that, you
Sure.
know?
Absolutely. And real quick, I'm trying to make sure we see all these comments. Kevin says flush for 5 minutes before each use. I did, I to this day I didn't know that. I knew you had to flush it, but I didn't do it every time. Do you guys?
I
Mine's just automatic.
started because I went back and read the directions. And so now the way I do it is I do it once a week when I'm making the water change water, because I make a lot of gallons. I make like 40 gallons in a day or two. And that's when I flush the membrane. But I don't do it I make about 5 gallons a day throughout the week. But when I'm getting ready to do the water change water, then I flush the membrane. And I didn't know to do that either until I think Cheryl brought it up when we were talking about it one day. I'm like, oh, and I went and read the instructions, and
Those darn
there was
instructions.
a lot to it. Well, I mean, I read them in the beginning, but there's so much that it didn't all register with me. And now that I've gotten to know the system better and how to do stuff and change stuff out, I kind of adjusted to the schedule after a while. It was just overwhelming at first when you
Sure.
know nothing about it to start.
Absolutely. And now I know, and I'll be doing it, but it says councils, because Sam's in Australia, can normally give water analysis if requested. And Kevin said ATI will test your RDI sample. ATI, what does that stand for? Do you guys know? I don't. Kevin, what's that stand for? I'm not hip with the with the acronyms. Tyan's here. Hey, and real quick,
I
I
don't
know
know that either.
I'm jumping around, guys, but I wanted to say, don't forget, as Kevin said, that Tyann had Dr. Tim on Tank Talk with Tyann yesterday. And if anybody was crazy busy like I was and wasn't able to actually attend, they are the lives. You can still watch them in the group, I believe. Tyann, am I correct? I'm pretty sure because I've watched old ones. So make sure you're a part of
Pretty cool.
Tank Talk with Tyann's group. And again, I'll just show it one more time for anybody who just joined us. If you're having problems with dinos or diatoms, this is the group. Jason, Matt, Tyann, you were right. I've been speaking to him over the past week, and he is excellent. There's files in here that helps tremendously with these problems. And when you have a group specifically focused on, this type of topic, that's what that's what I would recommend. If you want Seahorse information, go to Seahorse Sources group. If you want Dino or Diatom information, go to somebody like that. And I will say also that Jason was incredibly nice. He's on completely different schedule than I am, and still we've been reaching out back and forth and leaving each other unseen for a minute because one of us is asleep. But he's been very kind and very helpful, and I'm sure he would help you too. All right, moving forward. And okay, Seahorse Corner said, I'm not sure that it's an issue with the source water or RDI. Remember Dan said his systems, he used only RO water, not DI. I have already RODI, but I've never noticed a difference, so I use tap. Not much diatoms. That's really interesting. That's interesting. Go ahead, Holly.
Same here. Same here, because I have to say I only started using RODI water a year ago. And I had my tanks going for a couple of years prior to that. And the only time I ran into that really was the new tank syndrome. Like you're saying, when the tank first started cycling, it got the layer of algae on the bottom. And from looking at it, yeah, pretty sure that was diatoms. And then it went away. It wasn't like, it's not a thing that I dealt with when I didn't use RODI water.
Right. Well, I do think the only reason I'm not saying anybody's wrong, because obviously I'm pulling you guys in for help because this is a topic I'm not an expert in. But I would say, again, I think it depends on your original water, though. I know Seahorse Corner disagrees, but like Holly, you said your
Depends
water
on your
was
area.
good.
Yeah, it depends
your
on
water
your
was
area,
good.
I think. And when Sam was talking about council, like, because she's in Australia, that's different. But for us, it would be your water company puts out a report of everything that's in the water. And I've talked to mine about it. Actually, I called them and talked to them about levels of what it is in the water and how to read it, because they do provide that. It's public information that you can get from them.
Mhm.
And maybe there is something in
Her water.
water that causes that. And that's a chemistry thing, that's not
Yep.
something the average person would know, but
Well, Tyann said you can see the live that she's done with Jason on the YouTube page. So we'll put that link in the description when we're done. And Jessica, thank you. You're right. Mark Levinston would be a terrific resource for talking about our RODI. All I need to do is get all these people in the same place at the same time. That's the hard part. But I will talk to them on the side. I will take everything we've discussed today back to Jason. And of course, watch his interview with Tyann for sure also. And let's see if there's anything else.
I like, it's interesting. Seahorse Corner, Heather's saying there's no difference in the health or happiness of her tanks. She says she doesn't have algae problems. She uses well water, and the TDS is 56 to 100.
Yeah, there's
And
a big difference
happy
though
with it.
but there's a big difference between 56 to 100 and 430, right? So you're talking to the wrong one. I'm always going to say, look at the water because mine's so bad. So I think you're right though. It depends on where you are and what your TDS is. It's something you should know for sure. But still, I want to learn more about silicates because that seems to be Jason said that's the only way you get diatoms in a 3-year-old tank. So, and I'll be researching more. We'll come back to this for sure. And with dinos, to be honest, guys, without Cruz here, I'm not even going to touch that. Go to the group because I had such a hard time dealing with dinos. It took forever, and it was a punch process. I did so many different things at different times, and as we always say, do one thing, see if it works before you go on to the next. So hopefully what we've discussed and what Jason shared with me so far will help Laura with a few different ideas. Change the DI, lower the whites, everything else we've talked about, because it's really hard to pinpoint what the problem is. And speaking of health and happiness of tanks, Ray, do you want to share? Last week we talked about possibly finding a test kit or getting a test kit made that would test dissolved organics, because we in the Seahorse world focus so hard on many problems being caused by higher organics in the tank, and it's something that you can't currently test for. So Ray, what did you do to research that, and where are we at with that?
Basically, I put a post on Randy Holmes Farley's threads, and I've got a lot of information, but unfortunately, most of it involves testing that isn't practical for a home hobbyist. It's very expensive, like the test kit that I referred to last week, the NDOC, is very expensive, and you have it's just a one-shot deal, and you have to send away and then get the results back. Well, some of the other ideas for that were brought up also involve problematic testing, and then there was a fellow that posted, a very knowledgeable man from what I can see in his post. He goes by Taricha, I think. He posted a comment that chlorine demand, bleach will react with organic N compounds like proteins and amino acids. And so a free chlorine test, which is cheap HANA test kits, can show you how much bleach your tank water can consume. Now substitute bleach, put chlorine in there. Basically, what he's saying is that if you get that test and it shows that you it will consume a lot of chlorine, that means there's a lot of organic N compounds that are in the tank.
So wait, let me real quick put that in simpler terms for lower hobbyists like me. So what you're saying is your theory is that this test kit would test for the chlorine capacity, or explain that a bit more. Like what is your theory about why these test kits might help us?
Okay, first of all, it's only dealing with a certain segment of the dissolved organics, in that it's all nitrogen related. But my thoughts were that we don't have anything else, and so it is possible that we can use this test, which can, because of its what it can do for testing the free chlorine levels, it can tell us whether or not our organic N compounds are high or low. Now, if the organic higher N compounds are high or low, it's probably relative to the overall DO levels. So while we're just measuring a certain segment of them, then we can probably use that to do testing and eventually find out what a low range and a mid range and high range is, so that down the road, when somebody new comes into the hobby, we can tell them, you test your water, and when it gets to this point, then it means that your organic N compounds are too high, and theoretically you're going to probably end up with bacterial disease. Now, the other thing that come out of the thread was Randy Holmes Farley is not sold on the assumption that we have of the dissolved organics being the cause of the bacteria.
Okay.
It's my thinking that we already know that there is a relationship, because if we do get control of the dissolved organics in our tanks, we don't have the bacterial infection problem. So if it is something other than DO, whatever we are doing to rectify that DO, maybe rectifying the problem that is actually the cause of this the bacterial infections, if it isn't DO. Does that make
That's why,
sense?
yes, I was hoping Dan could join tonight so badly,
Mhm.
because he is the one who's always said it's dissolved organics, but I'm curious what he would think. Can you read us really quick what Randy said?
Oh, okay.
Why he thinks that our
It's
problems
a
aren't caused by.
seemingly valid hypothesis that increased organics lead to more bacteria that may lead to more infections, but I would not assume it is correct. Infections in other organisms do not happen just because there is organic matter present. I'm not versed in Seahorse tank issues, but I'm somewhat skeptical of the hypotheses that organic levels alone is a big driver, since it is not valid for other infections in other organisms. I would just add that many of the things folks do to reduce organics also likely reduce bacteria, including pathogenic ones, independent of any reduction in organics directly. This determining that an effect, if there is one, is due to reduced organics and not direct export of bacteria is difficult. In any case, your original post was how to test for organics, and the way to test is exactly what a DOC and TOC test accomplish. If there was
Gotcha.
a cheaper test, there would not be so many companies offering these tests. But DOC and TOC, that's just not practical for us to do
Too
with our
expensive.
tanks because of the expense and the complications. Not all hobbyists would be able to, do a proper sampling of it. But it's just that the expense it's a single shot deal, and we need something to build a database. We need something that's economical, that we can do multiple tests under different conditions, like with a new tank setup and with a tank that's been running for a while, but especially to be able to test as soon as a seahorse comes down with a bacterial infection. We want
Mhm.
to test it and see what the level is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because it's not practical to do DO testing in its entire situation, um, then what I'm in looking at this thread, knowledgeable fellow brought up this free chlorine test and the relationship that it has. So I'm starting to think that while it's not the be all and the end all, and we won't know until we actually get enough people to start using this stuff and to try to build a database. But I'm hoping that we can take a segment of DO, which is the N compounds,
Compound. Hmm.
and by taking that segment, do testing, and if the, hopefully we can find a relationship, find a low point and midpoint that seems to be safe, and then find a point that isn't safe. It's something that we would have to accumulate that database and build on it. But, and like, it's not going to be something right tomorrow, and you can't just go out and get a test kit and know
Right.
how things are going to be right off the bat. But it's my theory that by taking this segment of DO, that it may be all that we need rather than doing the whole DO levels.
Yeah. No, I like it, and
It's
that's
just a
so
theory, but I can't prove it. And especially now I'm down to one species. That
right.
species is abdominalis, and you never get bacterial diseases with abdominalis because the tank
Temp.
never gets up above 68.
Yep. The temps are so low, the bacteria can't proliferate. Well, I first of all, I like your theory, so I'm going to get test kits and contribute to this database because I think it would be helpful if we could give more
Mm-hmm.
clear instructions about dissolved organics. I also think I know Kevin and a few others in the are talking about what Dr. Tim talked about on Tank Talk with Tyann yesterday, and I'm saying we need to get Randy Holmes Farley, Dr. Tim, Dan, Ray, all these people in one live stream to talk this out. So Ray,
You
your
definitely
assignment.
won't get Randy in on that.
I
Randy's a
know.
scientist and he's so busy it's not even funny. As a matter of fact, uh, he went a long time. He wasn't even able to answer questions on his forum because his time is just so involved.
Sure. No, I know. I get that. And Kevin is saying that product Eco Balance is well, I should have put the first comment first. It's similar to yogurt. It has a coating nature that protects the animal fish inside to reduce bacteria infections. Also kills the bacteria by coating it. And so everybody, I'm going to go watch Tank Talk with Tyann from yesterday for sure. When Dr. Tim tested it on a test disc, the Vibrio could live in the area applied with, I think he meant to say Eco Balance.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm
couldn't live.
curious, couldn't live. I'm curious if anybody has had success using EcoBalance with seahorses. I'm just really curious about that. So reach out to Dr. Tim, see if he'll come talk to us seahorse folks too. I'm sure he will. And I'll set the date and let you guys know when. Because but back to Ray's theory is we wouldn't even need the products if we could figure out maybe not the dissolved organics of the tank, but what
What's the,
levels. Well, I don't think we're ever going to figure out the cause. I don't think we will, unless
I
some
think
scientist takes it
someday,
serious.
I think someday we will. Well, it has to be related somehow. You
Right.
know, there has to be a correlation. You know, if we're reducing the dissolved organics, what else are we reducing in the tank that could be the cause? There has to be a link. There has to be something else. I think we'll get there, just like we have with other things in the hobby.
Well, yeah, I do too. But the thing
But
is,
the thing is, too, you got to remember that some of the seahorses, like when you have like a bacterial infection, not all the seahorses get it. Why does one? You know why is it they have different levels of tolerance? What is the difference there too?
Why with 5 kids would one come home from school with the flu and the others don't get it? It's because
Yeah.
Right.
some are more tolerant than
Mm-hmm.
others to the resistance, resisting the diseases. Same thing with seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
Seahorses have some that never seem to get sick. You have others that seem to be sick all the time, and you
Right.
got a lot that are in between. But unfortunately, with seahorses, most of them are going to fall at the bottom end, the bad end of the scale,
Right.
whereas in the larger marine fish
Mm-hmm.
section, a lot of them are going to be in the middle or above.
Yeah, seahorses just don't have the capacity to have the immune system that other fish do. Agreed. Dan's talked about that endlessly, and I just think you're onto something, Ray, because even if, like you said, even if it's not dissolved organics, it's truly the cause or problem. If we could figure it out and figure out the levels, no matter what, being minimized as we minimize the dissolved organics, it doesn't matter because it's a tank, right? So I agree.
Mm-hmm.
We'll someday get it, Holly. I'm just with Ray that at this point it doesn't even really matter. If you're
Yeah.
lowering the dissolved organics, you're likely lowering the bacterial levels, whether they be good, bad, and as Randy Holmes said, and any parasitic stuff and all that. I mean, using
Mhm.
everything when you're reducing organic levels, right? And
Mhm.
Cheryl's coming back, I think. Okay.
Randy's last comment was that I need to look for published um protocol um, to tell how much to add and how much to measure and how to measure it. Well, I'm not sure what he means, how much to add. Um, so I'm not sure on this whole station, but I've been doing searching, trying to find any protocols on this stuff, but mostly what I'm finding is stuff for testing in um, waste treatment plates or
Mm-hmm.
swimming pools and that kind of thing. I can't find
Mhm.
anything to do with testing in aquariums.
Well,
Actual published protocols.
Kevin said, watch the video TikTok with Tyann. This was talked about in depth, dissolved organics, and we sure will. Everybody go watch that. But we're gonna try to get Dr. Tim here too, so that we can question him one-on-one because Ray's got some theories and we want some answers to specific questions. But definitely go watch that video for sure. Definitely good. And I will reach out to him myself too, try to get him in here so we can quiz him right on the spot. And Sam asked, doesn't redox potential measure organics? That's another one that we'd have to have Dan or someone else here for, because I know what was that thing that he used for a while that measured redox? It was oh my gosh, I'm not gonna remember now.
I don't
See?
think I don't think there's any correlation with the dissolved
Oh,
organics. So I don't know. That's why I go on reef chemistry to find out when I do have chemical questions. I don't understand chemistry. It's way above my head. And
what?
so I have to depend on people that do know. And
And Sam,
fortunately, there's people other than Randy on there that are willing to contribute as well.
right? And
Well,
Sam
I think
said,
Sam did though, didn't she? So I think she probably knows about stuff like that.
yeah, Sam's chemistry for sure. Sam did all that stuff. And Sam, I'm curious. You said it's a Senai. That's not the machine, or not the machine. The thing that I remember. I remember that um, Colby, and everyone used this. I don't want to say product. It was like a contraption, but ozone. That's what I'm thinking of. Ozone. They used that for something. Cheryl can't talk probably, but do you remember when they were using ozone, Cheryl?
What?
Remember when Dan and Colby and all of them used ozone?
Yeah.
What was that about? Do you remember?
That was a long time
A
ago.
long time ago. Yeah.
I think
Well, I'll check with him.
Yeah, I'm thinking they were experimenting with basically ozone to increase oxygenation or something like that. But I could be totally
Okay.
wrong about that. Can you hear me now?
For some, you still sound like a chipmunk.
A little
but
bit. Yeah, a little bit.
but I just for some reason I thought it had to do with organics, but I may very well be wrong. I will check with him, and I'll try to get all these folks to come into a Wine Wednesday and chat about this in more detail. I'll still try to get Cruz to come back too, because he is the man to talk to about dinos for sure.
It's
So
a rough evening for me right now because my sister, her 3 daughters, her 2 married, 7 grandkids are all in the middle of the hurricane in Florida.
right, I saw your message. So you take care of family first, Cheryl, for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out and get your audio fixed by next week too. But everybody's praying for and crossing fingers for your family
Well, I just got off
in the
the phone
hurricane.
with my sister, and they're completely lost power now.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be in my prayers for sure.
I'm not functioning real well right now.
I understand. Well, and we'll pray for him, and we'll fix the audio by next week. And Kevin said he'll see Dr. Tim in Dallas at RAP next week and ask him to reach out if possible. Sure, absolutely. I have met him too, so maybe I'll probably hit Tyann up on the side and just find out the best way to reach him. But yeah, let him know that we have some specific questions and would
Dan's
love
doing
for him
good.
to.
He's fine.
What, Cheryl?
Dan is fine. Also, he's in Florida.
Oh, good. He's okay. Yeah. Well, that's probably.
He sent me a message a short time ago.
Sure, and that's probably why he couldn't come tonight. So totally understandable. I didn't realize that I've been so crazed at home, you guys. I didn't even realize that they were going through hurricanes. So definitely everybody pray for all of them. And Ray, one more question for you. Yep. If people decide to try out your theory and order these test kits, do they just need to try? And everybody, Cheryl is saying they're praying for your family, by the way, everyone. But Ray, so if someone decided to try your theory out and got these test kits, would they just write down the readings until we can get a database going?
They would have to document it and keep it on hand until we figure out some place where we can put all the stuff from all the hobbyists together to come up with results that are meaningful. Because just taking 1 or 2 individuals and what they have is not going to be sufficient to give anything realistic or give a realistic meaning to the data.
Right.
You need quite a few people, but until we have some place worked out to put this stuff, I don't know whether your website can handle something like that or not. I'm not.
We'll see.
Not too computer savvy.
Your site is good too. He always says it's not good, but it's just not flashy.
I just have to copy what other people do. I click on view source and find out what other people do, and then put it in my templates. They're actually just templates that the site has, and they're meant to have pictures and then some description there. Well, I just take the description box and I copy the code and put it in that box there. If it doesn't work, then I try to figure out, did I get too much or have I not got enough, until then finally I get it right.
Well, Ray, quit telling people, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to learn the coding so that I can build sites for people. I don't want you telling them how to cheat. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You're fine. I'm just teasing.
Well, my cognitive abilities now don't allow me to do that anymore.
Well, but still, your site's fine. But no, I will look into that, and I mean, I'm sure Dan would be interested in that too. So we'll try to figure out a way. But if anybody in the audience, if you buy these test kits and start recording your results, just keep them, and then we can build from there, because I think it's a good theory. I think it's a good idea.
I think test strips are cheaper, but I don't have a very high opinion of test strips.
Well, so, right. I don't either.
the kit itself, I think, is much better.
Well, the
Yeah.
other person I'm going to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ray. I didn't mean to
No.
cut you off.
That's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, because Felicia and Todd Garner are at Biota. They might be interested in, I don't even know. I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm going to reach out to them and see what they think about the theory, and, maybe get some heavy hitters to help us, because I think it would be great to figure it out and try to save people from their sick seahorses. Go ahead.
I think one challenge, though, that we'll have in that is the fact that, like Ray was saying, we've discovered that some seahorses have stronger immune systems than others. So the readings that we take in our tanks of when bacterial infection occurs will probably not be consistent, because someone's seahorses might be hardier genetically than somebody else's.
Yeah, but
So
you know what
going to take a lot of feedback, a lot of
data?
tests
Yeah.
to data
But
to
it's the
really
lower
figure
ones
out
that we
what
want.
those thresholds are, because they'll be different in different people's tanks.
We
Right.
don't need
But
to worry about that.
well, and I would say, I want to hear what Ray's about to say, but I would say in my personal case, with all of the seahorses I've kept, I've experienced what Ray and you are describing, where, your tank stays the same, nothing's different, and one seahorse just keeps getting sick. And then that seahorse just has a lower immunity, because if it was a true problem, seahorses would be sick. That's not a guaranteed for good. It's just the way I see it. Ray, what were you going to say?
Basically, if you've got, say, if you come down with 100 seahorses that are falling between a range, and I'm just going to give a number, say 7 to 10. And I have no idea how it's even measured, this free chlorine thing. But if you've got 100 between a level of 7 to 10, well, the hardiest ones, it gets up to 10 before it affects them. The ones that are less hardy are getting at 7. Well, because you don't know what you have in your tank, and you've gone and checked out this chart here and find out that it can start at the level of 7, then you want to target and keep it under 7,
Right.
in case you have the one that's at the low end. You don't care about the ones that are hardier. You want to cover for the worst case scenario.
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't matter, like, because once we get this
So
data
you
and get
think
it
our
together,
numbers would come out similar then? Like one seahorse or two, when your tank is going to suffer at the level 10 range or what? So it'll be consistent, you think, that way between
Well, I
No,
don't
every
think
no,
no, I think, go
no,
ahead, Ray.
but it doesn't matter about being consistent. Because you want that number that's going to tell you at the low end what the earliest point the seahorse might be infected at. You don't
Uh-huh.
worry
Right.
about something that's higher, but to get the data, you need to find that range.
Yeah.
And so if you've got 100 data points there and you plot them out, and if you only got one, say at the 7, but most of them are coming in at 8 or 9, then 7 isn't so critical, but the 8 or 9 range is.
Yeah.
So it's a question of how many at what range to be able to come up with an answer. Like, it needs more thought than what I've been able to put into it in the short time now that I've been
Yeah.
to it. And it needs
Yeah.
someone with more knowledge than what I have on chemistry to help out here too. It's just
Mhm.
I got that
I'm
theory in my
I'm
head, and I can't get it out, and I just wish I had enough tanks and everything right now to start on it right away myself.
Yeah,
well,
well,
I'm
I'm willing to contribute some data, if we figure out, the test stuff. I'm willing to test it and put that out there, because I'm curious, in just like the short time. And I have to say, I've done seahorses a few times in my life, but this is the longest I've kept them, honestly. But I've lost a couple along the way to bacterial infections, while the others are doing fine, to my knowledge.
I get,
But I'd like to have
but
a way
no,
to test and kind of figure out ranges and things, like, like Ray's talking about, to have some guidelines on, okay, I need to adjust things, because just like we do for any other of the levels that we read in our tanks.
right. And I would say it's not going to be foolproof, and I'm volunteering Sam for our chemist. No, but
Yeah.
but I do see your point, Holly, that if you're talking, it's not going to be foolproof. If someone sets up a tank and we do come up with this range, and so this is what you want to aim for the end compound of dissolved organics, whatnot, it's still not going to mean that one seahorse with a low immune system might not get sick. But it
it's
will
going to take
prevent.
a while and a lot of things, I think, to figure that out. A lot of input to, like,
Right.
Ray's saying, if most people say it's at 7, there will be stuff outside of that, of course. But if the majority saying, okay, things start to happen around 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Then
And that, right.
we all have that in common.
Right. Exactly. It'll just save a lot of seahorses. Maybe not every, but it'll save a lot, because
It'll help.
I agree. We've blamed dissolved organics for so many things for so many years. And again, even if Randy's right and it's not actually that, whatever's being lowered when we do lower dissolved organics, having that range be useful, and we could build on it, is my point. Sam, I sent you a link in Messenger. Join if you'd like to comment. I do by 10 because I have to pick up my daughter. So just letting you know. And if there's any other questions about anything unrelated, we got a little deep into the organics, but any other questions you have about anything, please feel free in the comments. But any other thoughts on this, guys? I guess that's no.
Too many. Too many. My mind's just going.
Mine's wrapped up in the other thing.
Yeah, I'm just, just thinking it over and thinking, oh, okay, well, what else could it be? What other things go hand in hand with that? That just makes me think, like when Ray says that Randy brought that up, that he doesn't think that's the issue, but it's something linked to that. Like when we're reducing the organics, we're reducing something else that may be the cause.
Well, it may not be reducing something else. It may be just like he's talking about, or whether it was actually Randy or one of the other posts. Somebody was saying that when you do the actions to reduce DO, you're also limiting conditions that are creating the expansion of bacteria in that.
Right.
So, but the thing is, in my opinion, if you're getting rid of DO, that has to help as far as food and bedding for the reaction as well. Now, there was other posts that were on there, kept on making suggestions, like using peroxide, skimmers, and GAC. And there was one post I found from Randy on another thread that wasn't my thread, but on another thread there, he was saying you have to remember that not all DOs are skimmable.
Yes, I read that. I found that interesting too.
So if you are depending on your skimmer to take out all DOs, then it's not going to do that. And the fellow that got me on this chlorine, this free chlorine test bed, Taricha, I think it's pronounced. trying to. Oh, now I lost my train of thought.
I do it all the time.
This
Yeah,
MCI
no, I
thing,
read that. I did read that on your reef to reef thing because you posted the link in our chat, and I did go on there and check that out. That was interesting.
yeah, he says that GAC gets a short thrift. It's not given enough credit for what it can do in a tank.
What
The only
is
problem-
GAC, Ray?
Granular activated carbon. Or char.
Really? Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
basically carbon. But
Uh-huh.
my point is that we have no test to tell us when the GAC is depleted. Because if you don't take it out soon enough, it releases what it's captured back into the tank again.
Right.
That's the only problem that I have with GAC. Now, maybe there is a test for it that I don't know about. And that's quite possible.
Now, how do you think, how would the aquachar compare to that? Because we don't take it all out. We take out some and replace some, you know, so they say it adds biological filter, but people are having success with that in like raising fish fry and things like with the clownfish stuff. Do you think
wait.
that has a significant
The
play?
aquachar, the aquachar is different because it doesn't leach things out because of the way it's made. I'm not a chemist, but it's about the heat. It's not the same as GFO at all.
So do you think that's maybe why it worked so much better? Do you think that, like, supposedly from what people are experiencing using it, do you think that may be a key going forward in solving some of these problems?
Well, for me, I can't accept that everything that's said about the char is the way it is, because there is no actual scientific data from proper testing to be able to do it. It's like somebody comes out with an over-the-counter enrichment or something and tells you it's going to do this and that in your body, and they tell you clinical trials have shown this and that. Well, those clinical trials that they're talking about are not actual scientific trials that prove anything.
Yes.
And the problem is you got all sorts of people that may get that product and they feel that it's making them really feel good now. But then again, a placebo can do that too. Now, with the char, I'm not saying that it doesn't work because I know nothing about it, and I have to be honest about that. But because there is nothing scientific, and because it's not something that I can test for myself any longer, I have to rely on something else. And so until there is proper testing to show me that it does this or it doesn't do this, then I have to take it with a grain of salt.
With a grain of salt, yeah, it has to be proven.
Well, wait. I want to say something really fast. I would say that don't forget when they came on, they had a bunch of studies done by scientists that showed that it was different. Episode.
These over-the-counter health things have the same thing, Kelly.
I know, Ray, and I know you're very skeptical. And I mean, I'm just saying that Cheryl, Holly, and I are all using it with success. And I would say, though, that, one thing to add is that the Robert King chamber made it work even better. So, I'm just throwing out that. Go ahead, Holly.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, it has to be proven scientifically that
set up a GAC
to me, I agree with Ray. I would need to see like a scientific, like measuring.
Well, I'm not a scientist, but if my damn seahorses would have babies,
see
I want to do the comparison. That was my whole goal, because Kevin sent me 2 Robert King chambers, and I wanted to do the comparison using one. I used one in the 40-gallon one. I wanted to use the other to compare the sumps of a fry system, and they won't have babies for me. So I'm stuck, but I'm trying.
And also have an identical setup that you can do GAC in to see if it will do the same thing.
Right.
Because all the things that you told me about with the char chamber, I have done personally with carbon.
Yeah, again, it just works differently because of the fact that you know, you don't have to remove it. It doesn't leach, that kind of stuff. But I hear you, Ray. I hear you. I'm trying to do the comparison. I will do it as soon as they give me babies.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I put a char chamber in one tank. And it was a double char chamber. It's huge. And a 58-gallon tank. And I'm experimenting with it right now. And I will say that the water clarity is significantly better than what I've ever seen before. I mean, it looks like brand new fresh salt water every time I look at the tank. So it's definitely doing something. As to how effective it will be down the road in a grow out tank with 30 or 40 or 50 little seahorse, it's yet to be proven. I'm experimenting with it right now. My background is in science and in medicine, so I'm looking at it from that perspective. And quite frankly, it looks beautiful at this point, but I'll have to wait and see how it does down the road.
Right. And Cheryl, what Ray's saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The audio is, Ray can't hear you very well. I hope you got her message. But yeah, Sam said she can't hear you at all. She was just saying that she is, has a background in science and in medical, and she's testing the Robert King chamber right now with the AquaChar. But what Cheryl is, he wants to see more people, and specifically scientists, but more people to actually like do duplicate systems, because we can say a product works until we're blue in the face, but until you take two systems that are exactly the same and use a product on one and not on the other, or use two different products to see the difference, you're not going to know. You have to. I understand Ray's point. You have to do it that way. I just think they already did with the Robert King char chamber, but I'll check on that. But also, kind of jumping back,
it would be published documentation then.
Well, right, but I mean, like, if I do it, that's my point, Ray. Is if I do it, it's not going to be published documentation because I can't write a paper, but I can still give you my results.
Yeah, it's scientific proof. Like, there's an actual official study done and showing the differences. I see that. I'd like to see that too, because but I'm not knowing the differences in the. There's no way for me to tell in the water testing. Like, yeah, the water's clearer, but I'll say this. Sometimes I'll have a week where there's more film algae. Like last week, I cleaned more film algae off the sides of that tank, and then this week there was hardly any.
Right.
to
And me, there was no difference between the weeks. What was different? I don't know. It's all the same. But how come I had more algae this week than or less this week than last week?
But wait. I do want to remind everyone, because Sam said not all studies are published. And Dan has talked extensively about how these scientific studies are so focused on the things that the politics want it focused on, that sometimes they can't even be counted on themselves. And is the experiment I'm going to do with the chamber that Kevin, thank you again, sent me from Robert King, is do the comparison. Tank's the same. Nobody has to take my results as published scientific knowledge, but the more people that try it, the more people it works for, the more that I'm more willing, like Ray said, There's
Yeah.
products coming out all the time. But the more I see people in the hobby that have been doing this for a long time, that are still doing this, say that it's giving them success, the more likely I am to try it and hope that it gives me success. Because science isn't all it's cracked up to be. Okay, y'all. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
yeah.
wait. Sometimes hobbyists end up educating the scientists. That Dan is a proven person in that he had scientists. They were trying to tell him that seahorse is this, that, and the other, and he was like, no. And they told him that skimmers cause gas bubble disease, and he said no. And he educated them from his experience. So what we're doing matters. And the
Well, and
community
I'll
matters.
say this: my seahorses are loving that. Like they'll go, it's doing something for them because they like to go and sit by it sometimes and just be like next to it, even not even just the bubbles, but something
like
about how they feel near it. It's got to be doing something positive for them and the water because they do enjoy it, and they'll go over. Even Dandy, who's handicapped, it's on the opposite tank of where he likes to hang out, but he'll go out. Like he made the pilgrimage yesterday. He went all the way across the tank and hung out with the char chamber and got stuck even a couple times but it was so worthwhile to him to be there with it. It's doing something for them. Like it in some
Ray's
way.
raising his hand. Ray is raising his hand. Go, Ray. And then I got to read the comments.
Ollie,
go ahead, Ray.
If you hadn't put the char chamber in there, and if you'd gone out and bought a new hitch or decor or something and stuck it there, don't you think there was a good chance that the Seahorse would have gone and done similar situation?
But the thing is, I did all that because I changed out the decor, right about that same time. So they have all new decor, and they have that.
But the thing is, if you didn't have that and you had something else there, then the Seahorse would probably go to it too.
It doesn't matter, Ray, because I'm going to prove you wrong by doing the comparison. Okay? I'm going to do the comparison.
Listen, I'm the first one that'll tell you. I have no way I can say that the char chamber doesn't work.
Right.
The way I look at it, it can't be worse than GAC.
No. Right.
But it might be better.
Right.
I can't accept it being better without some actual proof. There's all sorts of documentation on what GAC can do and can't do.
Right.
But I see nothing, no documentation at all for the char.
Well, I'll tell you this, there is documentation. I'll try to find it when we're done. But I will also say that, it's a new thing. We've got to get the documentation. That's why I'm trying to do it myself. And Sam, thanks. I'm not a scientist, but I'll try. And I appreciate you, Ray, because we need skeptical attitudes because there are so many products on the market. And Cheryl, I will let you talk, but we can't really hear you. So go ahead.
Okay. I'll do my best. I'm experimenting with the char chamber in a tank that has no seahorses in it. However, I'm reading the tank. I'm adding food to it, and I have published in scientific journals. I've done background research on more than one occasion, and I'm finding it very intriguing because the clarity of my water I have never seen before. There's no seahorses in the tank. All I'm doing is adding food to see what the tank will do. And that's the point I'm at. Because I'm not looking to how the seahorses will do. I'm looking to see how well it can clear a tank and clean it up.
Well, that's what we need, and that's why we appreciate Kevin and Robert King for letting us test these out, because if we all do different tests, it'll show different proof. So that's wonderful. I do want to jump to the comments, guys, because like I said, I have to leave at 10. But Kevin said skimmer won't remove all dissolved organics. It will, however, remove bacteria. Run skimmer on a cycle with lights to give I can never say that. Catastrophic. Anyways, hang on, Cheryl. Bacteria, a chance to populate. I like that comment. And go ahead, Cheryl, and then I'll read the next.
Doesn't
Well, I'm
remove benzene.
what I'm looking for is, okay, now the tank is like crystal clear, like I've never seen a tank before. I mean, it's I knew I had some copepods in there. I now have a massive population of copepods in the tank, which I found very intriguing. The next step is then to move some seahorses in there and see how they do.
I'm so
And that's-
sorry, Cheryl, but I'm gonna ask you to tell because we can't understand anything you're saying. I'm so sorry because we want to know your study and what you're doing, but it's just like in and out, and people can't understand. We're gonna fix your audio, and you're all of that again next for sure. And Kevin said carbon doesn't promote bacterial colonization. Any thoughts on that, Ray?
No, I don't know for sure. All I know is that there are studies that show for the commercial aquaculture industry that raises seahorses. There was studies that showed DO was responsible for increased bacteria as the DO levels went up. And this is quite a long time ago now, at least a decade ago when I had those on my computer. I had the documentation that I got from, oh geez, I can't even, I'm thinking it was a company in Sri Lanka. There was a fellow that I was communicating with there. It's a place that Dan actually got some re-dye from at one time. They were a good place, and I can't remember the name. But anyway, through the fellow that I was conversing with there, he got me this documentation from the industry, and I had two pieces I can remember, but I cannot find them on my computer now because I'm pretty sure I copied them and kept them. But basically, it stated just that DO, elevated DOs led to elevated bacteria levels. And I thought it's basically was a case of food and bedding. But I can't swear to it now because I can't find those things. But I've been, for the last 10 years or so, I've been saying food and bedding. So I'm assuming that I was right in the first place. But
right.
I'm just ticked off that I can't find out where I put anything.
Well, I'll look too. And what, Cheryl?
Maybe Dan has some documentation. I don't know.
I'm gonna hit him up and ask him. Kevin also said, Holly, the next time that Holly, that happens, did you recently do any maintenance like clean a skimmer or such? And he's talking about when you were saying there was film on the tank one week and then not on the next. Did you clean the skimmer one of those weeks?
No, I clean the skimmer every day. I have a daily routine. I put my filter socks and clean the skimmer cup every single morning. And I have the skimmer is rated for tanks 4 times the size of what I have. And I'm religious about cleaning them. And there's not much in them when I clean them. It's just the residue, how it sticks. I clean that out every morning. So my routine is exactly the same every day. What I mainly attribute the algae to in that tank, in the display tank, to me, it's got to be influenced more by that lighting than anything else. Because I do have a lighting strip that's LED that I want to replace. It's programmable. It's designed for coral and everything, which I don't have. But it's acted up for the past year or so. And so I'm wondering if it's the lighting that it's putting out is not right, I think, sometimes. And that's the only thing I can say.
Which filter socks are you using?
I use what, 100 micron, I believe. It is 100 micron.
Okay, that's good.
And I would say too, Holly, that your point's good, and that's why Ray said, Ray was making the point that we need different people to do different studies with like tanks, because sometimes you don't know what's causing the problem. I bet you're right that it's the lighting. And Kevin also said lack of phosphate will reduce bacterial growth. Higher phosphate will feed and assist in bacterial growth and population.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing,
And Kevin, wait, hang on, Cheryl. Ray, Kevin wants your address, but Ray is in Canada and he only has one seahorse left. So I'm not sure how much experimenting he could do. But Ray, if you want to contact him, feel free.
Yeah, I wrote down there that I'm in Canada, and also I told him my Facebook name was Ray Ford.
Okay, good. All right, Cheryl, what were you going to say?
I replied to his phosphate bit, and unfortunately, the good get growth, but the nasties do also.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think
on the R2R thread as well.
Yeah, I think what he's just kind of pointing out different aspects of this that, as we were saying, maybe it's not dissolved organics, maybe it's the phosphates or whatever, I mean,
yeah,
you just don't
but
know.
What I've had an experience with the phosphates, though, is my phosphates are really low now.
Yeah.
Because of the Robert Clean chamber?
No. In general, just because I've made different, I upgraded stuff on my system, like a bigger sump and bigger skimmer and all that. From when I've started, the phosphates are really low. But I'll still have like I just did, I'll still have a seahorse that gets a bacterial infection now and then. Like the one I just had with IGBD. And I'm thinking, because when we were talking last week, I don't know that it was, it may have been after we were live, to where we were discussing the fact that some of it may be genetically related as far as the sensitivity to organics, because this particular seahorse I just lost passed away at roughly the same age as his father did from the same condition.
That's so interesting.
And they're only males. I have never had a female have that, only males. And I've lost two now, the dad and the one son, and the other son that was brought to me by somebody else. It was one that I had rehomed that came back to me, but I treated it for that same condition, basically. But they were all males. And the only ones, I have another male that's older that hasn't had any issues and is not related to any of the other ones.
Part of this is going to be genetic. Part of it is going to have to do with their susceptibility to different parasites and bacteria. And one of the things, all my lights on all my tanks are reef breeder photons. But the reason I use them, they're expensive, but because I have so much control over the lighting, I can do total blue, I can do slight blue with white, I can do red or whatever else. And one of the things that I found that helps is if I change it around, I can get a nice proliferation of macroalgae, which obviously reduces phosphates and may be a factor in terms of improving their health, because I'm reducing the phosphates organically rather than trying to use other filtration sources for that. But I've done scientific research. I've actually published in scientific journals, not with seahorses, but with other species. And I found that so often there's so many variables, it can be virtually impossible to segregate. I'm going to give you a quick example. When I was working in Rocky Mountain National Park on my master's, we had a major die-off of bighorn sheep. And everybody was scratching their heads trying to figure out why. Well, what was happening is because there were no predators in Rocky Mountain National Park many years ago, the bighorn sheep were using the same paths back and forth day after day, which means they were releasing parasites. And what they were doing is they were back and forth through it. They were feeding up, but getting reinfested with parasites. And this may be a critical factor with working with seahorses. They're not going to be that darn different than bighorn sheep. I'm sorry, but that's just the way they are. If you keep repeating the same program every day, they're leaving themselves wide open to ingest pathogens. And that was what we came to. We introduced some wolves and some predators. The population exploded.
I really wish I could understand what you were saying, Cheryl. I can't understand
I
anything
got
you're
a lot of
saying.
it.
I'm so sorry. Okay, well, you're going to have to tell us again next week for sure. And Kevin, I figured you probably did know Devin, but I wanted to make sure because he'd be a great Canadian to test the Robert King Chamber. But he actually designed one of my shirts. So glad you're in with him. Send him one. He'd be a great tester. He tests all sorts of products. But you guys, I am so sorry, but I am going to have to end it for tonight. 8 minutes. I got to go pick up my kid. But it is my mission now to try to get all these people into the same stream and have Tyann come and hopefully Kevin too, and everybody jump in here with Dr. Tim and everybody else and discuss this stuff at length. We'll test out Ray's theory. Maybe get Robert in here too to be part of the conversation. That'd be really cool to have all those people. So I will work on that, and I'm still trying to work on some other things. So just stay tuned, but I am going to have to end it for tonight. Anybody have any last minute things they want to say? Do? Anybody want to do the polka?
Seahorses.
Cheryl's going to try to talk again. All right. Okay. Ray, thank you for the theory. Thank you for all the research and thank you again to Jason for all the diatom information. I will get back to him on everything we discussed and see about his thoughts. Go join his group for sure. Check out Talk with Tyann from yesterday, which was with Dr. Tim, which will be very fascinating. And yeah, with that, I'm going to say good night, guys. Happy Wine Wednesday. Everybody say cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. My glasses.